Bloom knows what he likes, and he knows what his wife likes. His gift is the salacious romance, Sweets of Sin, a lusty tale of adultery in which the woman will sacrifice all of her husband's money, all for Raoul. Bloom also knows a lot about what will happen today, and may well have made way for it, telling his wife that he was going to see a performance of Leah that evening with the famous Hamlet actress, so she shouldn't expect him home until late. He knows, and he is at the bookstall preparing for what will happen tomorrow morning. Recall from Sirens. Boylan pops into the Ormonds bar for a quick one before going over to the Bloom's flat. Bloom risks following him to the Ormond, curious why Boylan's so casual. As Boylan enters, Lenehan hails him as the conquering hero, and the book's snide but all-knowing narrator, Joyce, replies, entitling Bloom the unconquered hero. Entering the dining room, Bloom thinks, not yet. At 4 she... Who said 4? Nobody. Bloom just knew. He's thinking back 2 weeks ago, walking side by side with Molly down by the Tolka. Boylan, the other side of her. Stop. If it was, it was. Must. Bloom thinks of that moment as Molly does, only in Penelope, she adds the recollection of what happened later that same evening. During this wasteland drought, leaving Dublin with no good eggs, Bloom can't, or rather won't, satisfy Molly physically in the natural manner. Rather, as she remembers, Polly came on my bottom when it was the night Bowling gave my hand a great squeeze going along by the Tolka. Harry Blumeris says of the Blooms, Molly ended their full marital relationship with the plea that she could never like it again after their son Rudy's death. But she doesn't seem terribly disturbed about Rudy, saying, 11 years ago now, yes, he'd be 11, though what was the good into going into mourning for what was neither one thing nor the other? The first cry was enough for me. I heard the death watch too ticking in the wall. Of course, he insisted he'd go into mourning for the cat, and we know she likes sex. She'd even go round by the quays where nobody'd know me, pick up a sailor off the sea, not care a pin. The section Blumeris summarizes in Lestrygonians includes Bloom's recitation of his own aesthetic theory. Aesthetes they are. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the kind of food, you see, produces the like waves of the brain, the poetical. For Bloom, nature is by the rules. Even art is a natural production. He chalks Rudy's death up to a mistake of nature, and for his own reason is willing to admit the guilt and accept the consequences. Consequences J.J. Malloy has already explained. Every male that's born, they think it may be their Messiah, and every Jew is in a tall state of excitement, I believe, till he knows. Well, Bloom found out very early on. But if Rudy died, he can't blame Molly. If it's healthy, it's from the mother. If not, from the man, says Bloom, citing an ancient Jewish belief, according to Gifford. When Molly says, I knew well I'd never have another, our first death too, it was, we were never the same since, she's telling us how well she knows her husband. In Lestrygonians, Bloom isn't saying that Molly could never like it again. He's saying that he could never like again the game of laugh and lie down. But why Sweets of Sin? What reaction is this book meant to evoke? As we learn from the narrator's interrogation in episode 17, evidence confirmed by ever-faithful Penelope, until 4 o'clock Bloomsday afternoon, Bloom had no reason to fault Molly, and Bloom knows that, too. He says in Ithaca, each one who enters imagines himself to be the first to enter, whereas he's always the last term of a preceding series, even if the first term of a succeeding one. He is never first, nor last, nor only, nor alone in a series originating in and repeated to infinity. Bloom then enumerates Molly's list of suitors, culminating with Boylan, none of whom have had any more of a significant physical relationship with her than that voyeuristic gentleman in the Gaiety Theatre. Until Boylan, that is. There are 25 in total, or as I counted, prior to Bloomsday, Molly had 24 suitors. Tonight, she's had her second sex partner. Suitors come and go like literary fashions, but we note that Bloom left himself off of this list, yet added Boylan. Why? Because Bloom is neither the first nor the last term in that series. He loves her. But if Molly has no sin, how can Bloom forgive her? If there hasn't been a sundering, as Stephen's original sin aesthetic theory demands, there can be no reconciliation. Bloom wants that reconciliation, wants his wife to love him again, but he can no longer bring himself to sleep with her in the natural way, a way that might result in another pregnancy. So if Molly is blameless, Bloom must elicit her sin, create it, in order to seek redemption. He does so by allowing her to sin so that he may forgive her. Allowing her to sin. Sound familiar? For God has consigned all men to disobedience, that he may have mercy upon all. The Bible's Satan opened humanity's material trials by tempting Eve. From Milton's Paradise Lost, we hear of how this same angel, embittered by its own jealousy, is thrust from God's presence. Rechristened Satan, this angel's fall was so furious the impact pushed Purgatory's mountain out from Earth's opposite hemisphere. Dante's Satan was a frozen evil, an Aristotelian particular. Milton's demon, on the other hand, moves as the very spirit of temptation, which is to say, privation, appearing as the serpent in the tree of knowledge. Milton also tells us how this devil first appeared after escaping hell. Satan appears as a stripling cherub to Archangel Uriel, of whom he asks directions to paradise. Recalling that Milton was blind, could we argue that Joyce is giving us a hint, a clue that as the blind stripling piano tuner, the spirit of Milton walks here? If the Bible focuses on sin, the parallel Greek story, the tale of Prometheus, renders the boon explicit. This titan of the Golden Age formed humans from clay and awoke us with the stolen light of the gods, fire. He is punished to eternal torment by Zeus, whose material spirit in the form of an eagle daily assaults the Titan, bound to a rock. Of course, immortal, the god would survive each day's assault, healing under the nightly balm of the moon's light, only to be reassaulted as the sun rose, curiosity's passion ever burning. We begin to see our hero Bloom, not as a sinner, but as the very spirit of temptation. Let's bring a few points together. Joyce builds his metaphors on two themes, church and state, the spiritual domination of a foreign moral authority and the material domination of an alien political and economic one. From the church theme, we learned of Eve's sundering and Augustine's happy fault. From the state theme, we learned of vainglory and ineluctable usurpation. In an aesthetic context, Joyce seems to accept art's contingency, but maybe not completely. And he rejects, by reversing, Vico's notion that styles must keep up with some changing eidolon of beauty. If beauty's experience is everywhere the same, why shouldn't there be some universal image of it? Original sin has been our metaphor for creation's contingency, and sin is evidence of free will. If Bloom's strategy wins Molly's love back, then why does the split continue through Penelope? Let's consider what has been stripped away and what remains in Penelope. In Molly's interior monologue, we hear no narrator guiding us to which lover's kiss she truly prefers. We find little style and minimal punctuation. There is no artist's world, so to speak of, no fake reality the artist has imitated. Verisimilitude of thought doesn't need a mirror, neither Wilde's nor Shakespeare's. We naturally assume our thoughts to be true, so with this commonplace, Joyce has appropriated our own pride in determining what truth the narrative has demonstrated. And yet the doubling persists. Molly imagines dreamily back to her past and reflects on how she got to where she was, with Bloom. Then she follows her memories again forward, noting the march of how her decisions led her to the very bed in which she sleeps. In other words, Penelope expresses the central duality of all of our lives, caught between a living present and an over and done with past. We are necessarily the result of what we have done, an artifact of our earlier choices, but we are always free to change. While our decisions have rendered us this or that particular being, our openness to the future, our spiritual freedom, indicates our Aristotelian universality.